Welcome ladies, to the second episode of Drip or Dram. Now before we begin with the next 10 submissions, I do want to say that I did slightly tweak the rules just a tad bit. So remember how I said that if you had lore you can get up to 10 extra points? Yeah, I kinda realized that I was robbing the people who didn't submit lore since 10 points is a lot. So, I nerfed it down so you can only get up to 5 extra points if you submitted lore. If you got a 1 through 2, you got 1 point. If you got a 3 through 4, you got 2 points, and so on. I think you understand. Also, I ask that you join my Discord server. You can enter giveaways, know when I run my arcade server, and talk to other guys and Blackpowder players. The only other thing I'll say is that you go watch the first episode of this since it goes over the rules and I don't really feel like explaining it every single video. Enough stalling, let's begin. Our first submission comes from I Has Eyes. Their character is a Danish surgeon, and gotta be honest with you, the quality of these pictures suck. So I'm just gonna recreate it and take a picture of myself. And there. Done. Now they do actually look pretty decent. I don't think anyone's gonna argue with me when I say that the Danish surgeon uniform just by itself looks amazing. As for their accessories, they seem to only have free-to-play items. They have the battle scar, John Marston hair, candy cane, and gloves. I think the gloves actually match very well with the surgeon outfit. I think the candy cane's whatever, but the stubble from the John Marston hair doesn't work well with this outfit, in my opinion. If you look closely, you can see that the stubble clips through the collar, and it kinda drives me insane. Overall, really great. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 for looks. Now let's move on to their lore. Niels R. Bills, or Biles, I don't really know how to say it. He was a Danish field surgeon, also very professional but quite insistent with his job. He was one of the few survivors after the tragedy occurred in Bardaho's fortress where he'd get permanently scarred. Ever since, he dedicated himself to study the Blight and its cannibal hellspawns, to the point of being willing to go back to Bardaho's during the expeditions done by investigatory ships. He knew the evil that would be unleashed with them arriving to Copenhagen in June 1814, so he decided to escape to Jutland as soon as he arrived home. He wrote many notes compiling his investigation and discoveries, hoping to make it an official encyclopedia. Overall, his character's lore seems pretty straightforward. A survivor from Bardaho's fortress, and he's trying to study and figure out how the cannibals operate and come from. He then fled to Jutland and wrote down all of his findings. I do appreciate how straightforward it is, and it's interesting to see a surgeon trying to figure out how the zombies work. I'll give it a 4 out of 5 for a total of 12 out of 15 points. Well done. Next up is Pip Here Up, and oh my goodness, not again. Alright, I'll remake it. And done. So this is Pip Here Up's character. The regiment they used were the Prussian Hussars, and it looks amazing. Great choice. As for their accessories, I think the beard they chose actually fits extremely well with this regiment, and the glasses also accentuate their outfit. Also, strangely enough, the stitch blemish he's using fits well with this outfit. In most instances, the stitch blemish is very hard to notice, but this time it actually works. I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10. The regiment is good, and the accessories are very well done. I think if the blemish was something like wolf scarred or half face scar, then this would have been a 10 out of 10. Now for his character's background. Heinrich, also known as Henry, was a cavalry infantry for General Blücher. He fought in the Battle of Leipzig and crossed the Rhine into Cobb along with other Prussians. During the Battle of Leipzig, he was severely injured but made a full recovery and joined Blücher to cross the Rhine. After Blücher got bit and was dying, the Austrians and other allied forces came to aid them. However, it was too late. Blücher was infected and killed the officer taking care of him, and after they were forced to put him down. Then they opened the cellar. After the massacre was over, Henry was still alive and lived for a few days after until eventually succumbing to dehydration and starvation. Interesting. So Henry was in the events of Leipzig and Cobb, and after the finale of Cobb he did live, just not for long. I think it's interesting that he does die due to dehydration and starvation, since the supplies that were grabbed during the event of Cobb likely wouldn't keep the soldiers alive for very long. So this is very well done. Only thing I will say is that not much was touched up on what kind of person he really was. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. It's decent but could use a little more detail. This leaves Henry with a total of 13 out of 15 points. We have Mark up next to bat with a character from the USS Boarding Party. It appears he is a seaman with an eye patch, wolf scar, and some curly hair. I'll be honest, despite the pretty simple look, I think it works really well. He's also dirty blonde, which is a hair color almost nobody uses in G&B, but he manages to make it work. By no means is this a 10 out of 10, but I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10. This is really well done. I love the simplicity and it just looks cool. Now his lore isn't very much, but it reads as follows. 23-year-old Marcus Dorian, which is a weird name by the way, is a pyromaniac and an American sailor. He's a seaman on the USS Constitution, making up its boarding party. He's fought in the Barbary War and has survived multiple naval battles with the British during the War of 1812. He was a member of the search party for Crawford and survived the events of Roscoff. On sea, he shaves with an axe, which will lead to some slight accidents. Again, pretty simple and easy to understand. I like that a lot. However, I do kind of wish he talked a bit more on how he's a pyromaniac, since that seems to be a key trait that isn't elaborated on. I do find it interesting that he survived Roscoff and was in the Barbary War, but it's nothing really special in my opinion. I'm giving it a 3 out of 5. Not bad, but could use a little more detail. And Mark's total comes to 12 out of 15 points. Good job. Next up we have Solar NO. Oh god, what is that? Alright. So, Free Corps is a good regiment, yeah. But what in the world happened with the accessories? The curly hair doesn't match this regiment at all. The glasses really do not work on this regiment either, and I guess the shrapnel scar is okay? But I think it could have been replaced with something better for Free Corps. Overall, it looks gross. I would not want to touch this guy. 4 out of 10. The only saving grace is that it's Free Corps. I really hope the lore is better than his looks. So this is Finn Frieda Koch, a 27-year-old German Lance Corporal serving in the Free Corps. Finn was born in the capital of Prussia with 2 loving parents at the age of 25. He volunteered for the Free Corps, which resulted in his service for the Prussian army. On a mission to disrupt a French supply route, the squad Finn was a part of went to a rocky and dangerous terrain. This was the only way to sneak into the French line. As the squad traversed through the place, Finn accidentally tripped and was unlucky to step into some very sharp rocks. This occurrence resulted in his scars. Alright, you know what, the lore isn't actually that bad. He had a loving family and he volunteered for the Free Corps regiment and got hurt while disrupting a French supply route. I think this is actually pretty well thought out. However, I do want to say one thing. If he tripped and got scars from these rocks, wouldn't you say that his glasses were maybe damaged? I think it'd make sense if he wore the cracked spectacles instead of the tinted ones in that case. But all in all, his character's lore was decent. I'll give it a 4 out of 5 for a total of 8 out of 15 points. Sorry, buddy. Our next submission comes from Ramayathon. And oh my god, another blurry photo. Alright, give me a moment. And done. Alright, so right off the bat, gonna say, I don't like the beard. I feel like the regiment is fine, but the beard really does not sit well with me. The hair is average, nothing special, and the bloody eye bandage is okay. I've never been a fan of the bloody eye bandage, to be honest, and it doesn't fit with many outfits. I will say the shrapnel blemish works very well, so props for that. I'm only gonna give this a 5 out of 10 though. The beard kills the entire fit. Now, he doesn't really have lore for his character, but still had something. This man in the Sigma photo is Johnston McDonald. He's a staff sergeant of Regulars Company, a rugged old man. He sports a classic saber and definitely not classic double barrel pistol he confiscated off a dead French soldier. So, I don't think it's gonna surprise anyone when I say this, but this is a 1 out of 5. Not really any effort at all. I guess it's cool that he stole a double barrel pistol, but otherwise that's boring. This totals his score for a 6 out of 15, probably one of the lowest scores we've ever had. Next we got Frank Heffley, and oh my goodness, I'm about to lose it with all of these blurry photos. Okay, and done. So, the regiment that Frank chose is decent. I personally don't find the rocket troops that great, but they're not horrible. As for his accessories, I really feel like he was onto something using the blonde hair and the wolf scar, but I think the carrot kills the entire look. For comparison, here's what his character would look like if he used the wheat accessory instead of the carrot. I think it fits way better in my opinion. His choice for using the balding one's hair strangely works with this regiment, since on the sides, the hair lines up with the straps to the helmet. I also feel like the mustache he chose is kinda iffy, but it's fine. I'm gonna give this a 6 out of 10. Now his lore is as follows. Sir Michael Wolfe of the Wingate 2nd Rocket Troop was born on Brigton on the 17th of July 1781 and was knighted for his bravery in San Sebastian. He went on to fight in Roscoff with the Americans, but he sadly died of an infection, not the blight, on the ship while it was heading back to America. Okay, so short and sweet, that's nice, but there is one thing I do have a question about, which is that it says he went to fight in Roscoff with the Americans, which makes it sound like he was with the Americans during the events of Roscoff during the start of the map, even though the British are only first seen once they reach the church. I'm going to assume that he meant that he fought alongside the Americans when they arrived to the church to save them, and not that he was with them from the start. And with that, I'll give it a 2 out of 5. Not much effort, but I guess it's still something. This leaves Frank with 8 out of 15 points. Next we have Luca, and finally a picture that isn't blurry. Oh, thank goodness. And I won't lie, just glancing at his character, I'm pretty impressed. He's rocking the KJL outfit, which is an S tier regiment with body wrappings on. He also has an eye patch with a battle scar under it, which I think works really well with the eye patch. Really, the only striking thing about this that I don't like is the mutton chops beard. I personally have never been a fan of the mutton chops beard, and I think it could have been replaced with something better. But for what it's worth, it's alright. I also can't really make out what hair he's using, but I think it's the sharpshooter hair. Overall, very well done. Now there is one problem I have with this, which is I can't tell what the hair color is, so I'm gonna assume by default it's brown. I'll give this an 8 out of 10. The only thing I don't like is the mutton chops. Benjamin Hill, a countryside German Englishman. His father was an Englishman that got enlisted in the wars in the early years of it before his disease was informed to the family. Mother and son worked on the father's old farm, cultivating and taking care of livestock. As the years passed, the war drained all resources from the land, making the prices skyrocket, making their living less sustainable. Then, he decided to join the ranks of the British Empire for extra cash to help his mother. He volunteered for the KGL and was sent to San Sebastian. Within the first 3 months, he lost his left eye, and to make matters worse, he was captured a few months later by the French and was forced to participate with them on the escape of San Sebastian, in which the survivors later confirmed his death to the cannibals. You know what? Bravo. Short, simple, very informative. He participates in San Sebastian but does die. Need I say more? I think this deserves a 5 out of 5 for lore, which totals Luca for a 13 out of 15 points. Quite a good score. Next up is Jaja with surprisingly a Swedish character. I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't expecting anyone, not even one person, to submit a Swedish character, yet here we are. He's using the Södermanland regiment and weirdly rocking a standard cut with brown hair. Obviously, the main appeal is the nasty bruise and the eye bandage, which I like a lot. I also usually don't comment on this, but I think the fact that he's a sapper adds to the eye bandage and the bruise since, you know, sappers frontline quite a lot. I also didn't notice it at first, but he also has blood splatter, which adds to his injuries. I think this is a decent 7 out of 10. The regiment is nice and the accessories are good, but the generic hair doesn't do a whole lot. I think this has 10 out of 10 potential. Now for his character's background. Nils Johan Lundqvist, I think that's how you say that, was a 43-year-old Swedish soldier who died in 1813 with his time of death being unknown. He was known for his chaotic behavior towards the Blight. He might be a sapper, but he craves the field, but despite his devoid in controlling his emotions, he was a creative man. In his late 20s, he crafted the Ostivel. I think that's how you say that? It was a genius idea, but his dream got cut short by a Norwegian man who stole his first ever Ostdivel that he created. Later that day, he found that Norwegian man on the streets, who was showing off his creation. Nils was furious. He charged at the man, but the Norwegian man was skilled enough to fight back. While they were fighting for their life, the Ostdivel was nowhere to be seen. Nils realized that fact and left the man to rot on the floor to find it. Okay, what the heck did I just read? So I had to Google what the heck an Ostdivel was, and it's apparently a cheese cutter. Yeah, a thing that cuts cheese. So Nils created this thing and then had it stolen by a Norwegian dude and fought over it. I also looked up who invented the Ostdivel, and it turns out it was a Norwegian man named Thor Bjorklund. So that man Nils was fighting was probably Thor Bjorklund. I won't lie, the fact that this is what he invented and was fighting over is insanely funny. And not even that, he gave some good information about how he's a sapper and likes fighting, which explains his injuries. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm giving this guy a 5 out of 5 for his lore. It was funny, creative, and well written. This gives Jaja a total of 12 out of 15 points, which is pretty good. Next is Epic. Using the Free Corps Regiment, he appears to be using the Glasses and Battle Scar combo. For those that don't know, if you equip Glasses and equip the Battle Scar, you won't be able to see through the glasses. It is definitely a very nice accessory combo in my opinion. Epic's character also has a scarf, and I think is using the full head hair. The only real gripe I have with this is that the scarf clips through his clothing and his hair quite a lot. Otherwise, I think this is pretty good. I'll give it an 8 out of 10 for looks. Now for the background, Epic's character is Frank Kleen, a 30-year-old Prussian officer of the Free Corps Regiment. In the military, everyone saw him as a distant officer with his appearance and being reticent. But behind that was a wound that formed his personality. He had a small family. December 1813, during a mass paranoia ensuing Germany, Cobb civilians had to be evacuated to... I don't even know how to pronounce that castle. With his officer's authority, he got his family through the bridge led to the castle, but then sappers had to barricade the way due to chaos in the castle. The panicking crowd started surging. Frank noted that the ground was squishy as the masses ruthlessly overlooked whoever fell down during the shoving. Someone in the crowd there was infected. The infection started spreading very fast. He managed to climb through the crowd to a roof and survived, accepted that his family was gone, and Frank then joined the Germans' rear guard in January 1814 and fought against cannibals to secure the castle and lived to fight another day. So I'm gonna be straightforward, this guy is super edgy. The scar, the scarf, and him being distant is just super edgy, bro. I do like how he elaborates on the evacuation of the civilians in Cobb though, as it does provide context for the finale. I also like the attention to detail, like how people were shoving and trampling each other. I'll give this a 4 out of 5 for lore. Just your classic, edgy kid's family dies and now fends for himself kind of thing. This leaves Epic with a 12 out of 15. And now for the final submission for this video, comes from Alpha. And oh my, this looks real good. So let's break it down. He has the sharpshooter hair, eye patch, wolf scar, dandelion, the Prussian cavalry regiment, and whatever that beard's called. The regiment of choice is an S tier, no questions. I think the hair color matches well, sharpshooter hair is really good, and the wolf scar isn't too much or too little, it's just right. The eye patch fits well, and I think the regiment accentuates it even more. The beard fits and the dandelion matches well with the darker shades and the hair color. Dislike the video if you want, but I'm giving this a 10 out of 10. His character looks amazing. Now for his lore, let's hope it's just as good. As once a proud skeleton hussar trooper among the cavalry unit, after the Blight started, they were given orders to rescue or save Blucher in Cobb. While they were on the way, they were ambushed, runners tackling troopers out of their horses, and some got eaten alive. Only 7 managed to survive. Their officer ordered Lucas to send a message saying that reinforcement that Blucher hoped for will be delayed, and the rest will report back to base to request for soldiers to bring supplies and more firepower to the Cobb castle. Lucas accepted the order with no other choice. Lucas rode his horse as fast as he could. Some runners try to tackle him, but he dodges them, but one manages to grab and bite his horse's leg. Lucas crashes and ran as fast as he could. After a while, he arrives at Cobb and climbs up some barricades and stumbled upon some Russians, Austrians, and Prussian soldiers taking shelter in an old church planning to change location to the castle, and the rest is history. So, gotta say, the punctuation and grammar was absolutely horrible, and I had to go in and fix most of it myself when writing the script. Anyway, this is decent. Lucas and his soldiers were ambushed while on the way to save Blucher, and his officer ordered him to go send a message. He stumbled upon some people taking shelter in a church, and the events of Cobb began. If you want me to be honest, this is kinda iffy. I tried rereading this multiple times to understand, but apparently the message he needs to deliver, that Blucher's reinforcements will be delayed. My only question is, to who? Didn't Lucas go back to base with the officer and other men to deliver the message? I'm really confused who he's trying to get this message to. At bare minimum, even if I misunderstood this somehow, I don't think it was easy to understand. I'll give it a 3 out of 5 since the rest of the character's background was good, but the grammar and storytelling confused me a little bit. And this leaves Alpha with a 13 out of 15. Pretty good. And that's all the submissions for this video. We have one more episode left and I will finally announce the winners. Feel free to let me know what you would rate these avatars in the comments. I think my favorite character's lore for this video was Nils Johan with his Ostivo. But for looks, Lucas was definitely the best. And also, I'm going to say this here since a lot of people got confused in the last video. Submissions are closed. If you're trying to join my server just to submit your character, it's already closed, so don't bother. Other than that, do make sure to join my Discord server in the description. I'm Phoenix Boxer, and I'll see you later.